It is 6 o'clock on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. Calling to order the Town of Rutland Select Board meeting. We are meeting in the lower level of the Rutland Public Library, dueling meetings with Conservation Commission. So we are in the Redfield
Matson
Redfield room, if anyone wants to come join us. We are on Zoom, I believe, and we are being televised for on local access television now, as well as recorded for re-airing on local access, YouTube, and other social media avenues. We can start with the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would, I just hit my knee on that thing. I would look for a motion to approve treasury warrant 24-21 and payroll 24-PW21.
Move we approve Treasury Warrant 24-21 and payroll 24 PW21.
Second.
Motion and second. Any outstanding, I know we got the expense report from Donna earlier in the week. She's on vacation. Anything of note, Austin?
No, just because we're getting close to the year end, some of our obligations are closing out some of our line items, so you noticed probably in the report that some lines are close to 90, almost 100% expended, and that's normal. The other line items that we're closely watching will address with year end transfers.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? Roll call, Harry.
Second and I.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin I.
Whitman, aye. I would look for approval of meeting minutes for the April 1st, 2021 regular meeting.
I was on the yes.
Yeah, and the, I would look for approval of the executive session not to be released at this time.
Motion to approve regular session meeting minutes for April 1st, 2024 and April 1st, 2024 executive session not to be released
At this time.
at this time.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second the motion.
Any comments, questions, concerns? As Tom noted, he was absent for this meeting. Hearing none, roll call.
Second and I.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin abstain.
Whitman, aye. Sorry. And then I was wondering if the board would be amenable to releasing the executive session meeting minutes regarding the Woodhouse studio or the Woodhouse discussion. I think we had two sets that we would be looking to release. It was the February 20th and the March 4th section of the minutes related to the Woodhouse. I think that we had those in our packets last meeting, and we were considering releasing them and decided to hold them because we had one more, we were going into executive session about the Woodhouse. Again, these are the meetings that we kind of had early on in the process. I don't know how the board feels about releasing them at this time, or if you wanna wait a meeting, or the April 1st ones I was suggesting to hold because that's could be with negotiations.
Okay, I see.
Well, the Woodhouse, you guys made a decision to move forward, right? So what's the point in holding on to it?
Yeah, so those were just the meeting minutes where we kind of talked about the different options. Austin had presented the different options. We talked about some of the different options that we as a board had.
So the April 1st executive
We
session,
would hold.
are both of these covered under the motion we just made?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're separate sorry, that's why I was confused,
Yes.
because they're separate documents, so I just wanted to make sure.
Technically, they're the same set of minutes, but I separated them out so that if at some point you wanted to release those particular Woodhouse ones, you have the option to do so.
Okay.
Yes,
Now
but I know at the April 1st meeting, the board had maybe discussed some possible terms and conditions, and so we thought it would be best to hold on releasing those for now.
I wonder if it might be better just to hold and release everything at once, just so that there's a whole picture.
Studio, yeah.
The Woodhouse.
Yeah, in the Woodhouse.
Yeah, I mean, I think last meeting there was kind of the big push as far as getting, you know, we had a large public representation here about the Woodhouse. And so I don't wanna withhold them, but also I see the value in just kind of holding everything and releasing it as a package.
Right.
I know we get kind of pushback back and forth about releasing minutes in a more timely fashion. So I wanna be mindful of that, but also see how the board feels about it. So I'm perfectly content to hold them for right now if that's the board's will.
I think, I agree with Jen that the minutes are great, but I don't want to give the people that were at the meeting any hope, false hopes over the decisions we made in the executive session until that's completed altogether.
Yeah.
And we find out what's going on there, so,
Yeah, they might read one set of minutes and
right,
not, like I said, not understand the entire picture of what's
right.
going on, so I'd rather just release it all as a.
That's fine. So we'll hold on to them, Tamika, and then we can maybe just earmark it for future, once an agreement has been negotiated or something.
You got it.
Revisit. Thank you. We are posted for a 6 o'clock public hearing. I will open the public hearing at 6:07 PM. This is for alteration of premises retail liquor license for Schultz Farm, 163 Maple Ave. And we have a request to include outdoor space on their current liquor license. I think Mr. Schultz is here, if we have any questions for him. I'm not sure if iPhone 8 is here for the
I
public.
believe that's Yvonne.
Okay, yeah, is here for the public hearing as well. And I don't see anyone else either on Zoom or in person at this moment. So we as a board are free to have conversation. If I understand correctly, this is essentially an amendment to include the outdoor space, and it's delineated outdoor space on their existing liquor license. Tamika, can you or Austin, one of you remind me of the process? This is solely a local liquor, we do this and then it still has to go to the state, or the state has already approved it?
Nope, so this goes through the same process as if it was a new retail liquor license, so it starts with the local licensing authority. If you decide to grant approval tonight, I would then send the document to the ABCC and they would continue their review from there.
Thank you.
Question?
Sure.
Mr. Schultz, the gray areas or the colored areas that I'm looking at, are those the areas that you're looking to?
Oh boy, I didn't do that, Yvonne did, but yes, I assume, so can I look at it?
Sure.
So, Harry, if I may, the green areas are the grass, and then the yellow area is like walkway, solid surfaces.
Yeah. I mean, is this where you're looking to hold your events in these grassy areas here?
Great,
Okay.
Yeah. trying to
And,
do. Well, we found out when we first did this, we're very inexperienced. And so the way we tell is, so when we first applied for all of this, the only place that you could have a drink was right there. You couldn't even go out on the porch. And the gentleman from the ABC pointed this out. And he says, go for the whole thing, get it done. It's much easier that way. And that's why we're here.
okay, so people will be in the grass area B and E here and these areas. Where do the drinks get served from?
2 places. We have our barn here that we're gonna be serving out of. And
Okay,
then down here at the restaurant.
The farm store and cafe.
Yeah.
So if I understand, it's pretty much the entire area here is where you're looking for. The yellow is the hard surfaces and the green is the grass area.
It's not only, this is hard surface area too, but this is the spot in here that we decided to have that available with, next to the fire pits, and then this, and this.
so let me just, so as I pull in there and there's a parking space along the rails.
Yep,
Okay, you have a grassy area before you get to.
way up on top,
Yeah, up on top there, that's what you're looking at.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi guys, if I may interject briefly, the inspector's gonna be working with us as well. We have to construct a walkway as well from the cafe to the barn. And so people won't be walking right on that street to get up to the top of the hill. It's gonna be a walkway with stanchions, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And you're working with the ABCC to help with that, is that?
Yes, they're well aware of what we're doing for the alteration of premise. Like I said, like Mr. Schultz said, when we first initially did this, we just included that cafe, but we weren't aware that we included the whole entire area, so that is why we did this again a second time. But it's gonna be the same hours with the same staff and the same rules in place that you guys have approved before.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Does Jen, Tom, Paul, do you guys have any questions? Harry, do you have any other questions?
All the permits, everything?
Everything's been approved internally.
Okay. No, I'm good.
I'm good.
I appreciate you, Yvonne and Dick, I appreciate you guys kind of working with the ABCC to get this, you know, above board and everything. I think it's a great opportunity up there. And for Rutland, especially getting into the warmer weather and everything, to have that farm aspect, again, another farm aspect. So I appreciate the work that you guys are doing to follow the process. Thank you.
It's been long and arduous.
Well, thank you for
Hopefully
your,
now with the milk room gone though, right?
I beg your pardon?
I said hopefully now that the milk room's gone, hopefully you guys will be the only show in town, right?
Yeah, we didn't do too badly when the milk room was open
That's what I'm
either, but
saying.
not serving it, you know, we had to get alcohol trucks up there and we had
Yeah.
to do it that way, but we did okay.
Hopefully you do better.
Hoping so. You never know.
well, thank you for your perseverance, both of you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys, you guys have been great to work with.
And thank you Tamika and Austin for kind of working with our residents. It's kind of a new opportunity for a lot of us. So I know it can sometimes be a lot of questions back and forth. So I appreciate the time and effort that
Absolutely. We're
the
always happy to
office
help.
is working. So thank you. Is there any other conversation? Hearing none, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
Second, aye?
I need a motion.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing in regards to Richard Schultz, Steve A. Schultz Farm.
Second motion.
Any conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye?
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye?
Whitman, aye. If the board has any other conversation, otherwise I would take a motion to approve the alteration of premises for the retail liquor license at Schultz Farm, 163 Maple Ave as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Hearing none, roll call, Harry.
Second, aye?
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye?
Whitman, aye. So you guys are good for your next step, which I think is Tamika working with you guys and getting it off to the ABCC. So,
Thank you guys so much, I appreciate it.
thank you again, I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Okay, have a good night.
I gotta go back to work.
you,
Don't
thank
stay
you.
up too late.
Huh?
Don't stay up too late.
No.
Fair enough.
Good night, guys.
Good
Good night, thank you. Moving into member comments and announcements. I think, I'm not sure if everyone saw the email from one of our school committee reps, Joe Becker. There was a Rutland Bay Path student, senior, Noah DuPont, who passed away very unexpectedly over the weekend. It's a big hit to the community. He seemed to be a much loved student and friend throughout town, young adult throughout town, as well as the school. I believe he was a senior in the plumbing program. So if we can just have a moment of silence for him and his family. And I'd just like to extend my condolences, I think, on behalf of the board to family, friends, everyone who knew him. he seemed to have a big impact on a lot of folks in town and throughout the greater Massachusetts community, so condolences.
Question, does anybody know if what happened in town?
No,
I
didn't,
did
Didn't
not,
happen in
didn't,
town.
didn't even happen in the state,
What's that?
didn't even happen in Mass,
Oh, it didn't.
I don't believe so.
So, yeah, I know we have some events coming up. I think the events committee has townwide Earth Day cleanup coming up on Saturday, April 20th from 9 to noon. I think that corresponds with DPW has some yard drop off opportunities as well. Coming up, I believe they're the Saturdays. I think that it's posted on the front of the website.
It is, yep, April 20th, May 4th, and May 18th.
Thank you. And the townwide yard sale is also coming up on April 27th. That's a big, it's 28th annual. That's Saturday. It's a big fundraiser for the 4th of July committee and fireworks and all the work that the 4th of July committee does for the almost week-long celebration that Rutland puts on. So those are some of the big things coming up. We have some public information sessions for the Community Preservation Act discussion. There's one on Sunday, April 21st here in the library, and there's one May 2nd, also in the library. I believe that's a Thursday. And then, of course, we have annual town meeting on May 11th and the election on May 13th. So those are kind of, I think the website is up to date with the calendar with the events that I mentioned. So it's getting to be spring in Rutland, so all the sports are back in session. Kids are out and about doing stuff, so just be mindful and aware, and good luck to all the Rutland teams and players that are playing in regional leagues as well. So, does anyone else have any comments or announcements? Is there anyone here for public comment?
Thank God.
We will move into the town administrator update then. Austin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board. I also just wanna echo the comments of the chair. Sad news received over the weekend, and on behalf of staff, just also wanna share condolences and thoughts and prayers with the family and also the Bay Path community as well. The month of April is actually National Telecommuters Month, but this week specifically is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Dispatchers Week. Our dispatchers are participating in a Spirit Week. I think yesterday was 80s Day, today's 90s Day. They had some funky, very spirited outfits. If you check out their Facebook page, you can see them participating. I can't remember what the days are for the remainder of the week, but they are certainly, if you wanna call them the partiers of the public safety building, they do a good job celebrating. So just wanna thank them for all their work. And we have hired a new DPW truck driver, Chriselle Bango. She's worked for various DPWs, town of Westminster, but most recently worked in the city of Gardner and the city of Leominster as a fully licensed CDL truck driver and equipment operator. And lots of updates for capital projects and other initiatives. I notified the board after approval, we sent the notice of award to La Rochelle Construction out of West Springfield. They were the only bidder and the lowest bidder for the roof repair project on this building and the public safety facility. Our consulting engineer at Weston and Sampson is helping us coordinate the construction documents. We'll be executing those over the next several weeks and then working on a timeline for construction. Again, the goal is to minimize the impact to the community, recognizing that summer is often especially busier for this building, so trying to find some off times to be able to do the work on this building. The Public Works Director, Chris Kolofsky, participated in a meeting with MassDOT for the Route 122A of Barry Paxton Road and Pleasantdale Road intersection, also known as Four Corners. I notified the board several months ago after some advocacy. MassDOT has agreed to put this on the Transportation Improvement Program. They'll be fronting the design and the construction on this. They first wanted to meet with the town to see what the town's objectives were for redesign. Most of the concerns are related to public safety, both vehicular and some pedestrian public safety challenges there. It appears they're still in favor of a roundabout at that intersection, however, they're assessing all aspects, whether it's a signalized or alternative intersection. We also talked, because it is within the village center zoning district, talked about sidewalks, as there's some neighborhoods and some businesses there. This is a part of the Complete Streets project anyway, so they'll likely include some sort of sidewalk or bike lanes as included in that design as well. Looking at the initial tip, I believe they're slated for construction, if all goes well, timelines in fiscal year 27. I also notified the board 2 weeks ago, or last week, we were notified from CMRPC of their intent to conduct a corridor profile study of Route 122, focusing on kind of the center of town intersections of Maple and Main and Palmagussit and Main Street. There's a lot of aspects in a corridor profile study, but they're looking at speed counts, any crash history, condition of the pavement, intersections, looking at everything and then coming with some high-level recommendations for redesigning the intersections. And as I mentioned in my update to the board, this also is kind of the first step towards getting another project on the tip. Especially if it's a municipal priority, oftentimes they kind of look for the town to kind of start things. So partnering with CMRPC allows us to get some of this work done at no cost. Also another partnership with CMRPC, town planner John Charbonneau successfully received a DLTA, a District Local Technical Assistance Grant, to support the Economic Development Committee. They were asking for some assistance in developing a business brochure and also the purchase of gift bags with the Discover Rutland logo. You may have seen the campaign that was shared last year. Kind of an economic development tool to pass out with some, either gift cards or brochures from businesses. They'll stuff those gift bags and pass out at the 4th of July or some other town events. These funds will work to create the brochure and also the acquisition of these bags. A opioid awareness talk that was scheduled for last week has been rescheduled due to space issues to May 1st. This program will be paid for by using the opioid settlement money that the town has been receiving over the past several years. Dr. Tom Allen from UMass, he's also, I believe, a resident, has spearheaded this along with the Board of Health and the library as just kind of an overall awareness, and this is included in the legislation of the opioid settlement funds. And it's a good overall topic for people to talk about, especially as Central Mass has a significant issue with the use of opioids. Just a reminder, the stormwater bills for FY24 will be sent out this Friday. The fee that was set by the board was $40 per developed parcel. They'll be sent out in a separate bill. You'll see some information on the bill about what this is for and where to go to if you have any questions. Again, we have resources available online to inform people about the stormwater utility. And you may have seen this week, school vacation week, it's a good opportunity to get some work done at the schools. DPW staff started the removal of the playground located in front of Naquag. After town and school officials deemed this equipment no longer useful, I believe they're installing some light equipment and sort of passive use on that property, but they'll be removing all of the poured in place rubber, removing the slide and everything else, and I think putting some grass or gravel and some tables and chairs there. And then Tamika and the chair stole my thunder about the weekend brush drop off. Just a reminder, you can still drop off your brush anytime during normal business hours as well. The gates are open, so you can drive behind DPW and there's some signage to clearly demonstrate where to drop off your yard waste. So happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Sure. Austin, on the library roof repair
Yes, sir.
project, what did the bid come in at?
$292,000.
Okay. And that money we had set aside for that?
Yes. Use of ARPA funds.
Okay. And the corridor profile on 122 Maple and Main and Palmagussit.
Yep.
Did they give you any indication when this would start or anything like that?
Yeah, so they, CMRPC follows a federal fiscal year, so this will be in their next fiscal year, so I believe that they'll start after October 1st, and then it'll take approximately, usually give about a year's worth, so they're estimating this study will be completed by September 30th of 2025.
Was the Ag Committee or EDC, I'm sorry, EDC Committee excited to get the grant to put together those things?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, very excited. I think they actually have a meeting tomorrow, so I think there'll be some sort of a kickoff with town planner to kind of talk about next steps, but absolutely.
Super, I think that's what we need to kind of get things going. And one more question, oh, go ahead, Jen, I'll let you.
Just to tack onto that particular topic, it's not specifically noted in here, but there's obviously a lot more pedestrian traffic up here, especially in the summertime, and is that gonna be accounted for?
As a part of the profile study?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that's always important, especially when we do like traffic counts or anything, is we need to make sure, you know, the worst time to do a traffic count is like during the summer when there's no school traffic.
Yeah.
So we also wanna note that especially this area of Route 122 during certain seasons gets really busy, so we wanna make sure of that. So we'll inform them, we'll have a kickoff with them talking about what happens here, the busy times, and then they'll take all of that into account in their recommendations.
I just think of all the summer camp kids that start at Naquag and they walk all the way up to go over to the pool in the afternoon and back, so just
Yeah.
keeping all those things in mind.
And this is, this will be presented to the select board, but also presented to CMRPC as a whole for them to consider. CMRPC operates the Metropolitan Planning Organization as well, which is the organization that is in charge of the TIP. So it's important that they see this as well and recognize that Rutland has a lot of needs. So this is great that they're doing this, because if all of a sudden we just come and say, hey, we wanna do something, or we want you guys to fund construction of this, they wouldn't have had any history about this if they didn't have this corridor profile study, so. We pay an assessment to CMRPC every year. My opinion that we should use the services. So whether it's the DLTA grant or this profile study, I think that we can do a lot more with them.
We pay what, about $2,500 a year or something?
2,700.
Yeah, I think it went up a little bit for FY25.
And you probably already mentioned this in a previous meeting, so forgive me if I'm rehashing it, but how much did we get from the state for the opioid?
There's actually been new settlement funds, so I'm gonna round up, Harry, and say $10,000, but that's per year, and that's a 10-year agreement.
Wow, okay.
I believe it might be slightly less, but I know just, for example, just this past couple of weeks, we received $5,000 from previously approved settlements, but there's been additional from distributors and manufacturers that we are also will be receiving additional monies for.
In this, I know the police department in the past has gone in and talked about drugs and so forth. Is this money available to them as well to do things if they need to?
Yeah, so there's a warrant article for the upcoming town meeting to place the responsibility of spending those funds for the Board of Health and the Health Department. But they can certainly work with the police department, fire department, library on educational items. Some communities have also purchased Narcan to assist folks who need to utilize Narcan for whatever they need to use it for. So there's a explicit list of what we can use it for. So whether it's educational and hiring a consultant or have the police department do some sort of talk, we have a lot of authority.
I mean, we could find a way to, for the benefit of the town, spend that money.
Yeah, oh, definitely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'll just use an example. Nearby towns actually pooled all their money together and they hired a substance abuse coordinator. And as a 10-year funding source, they have that position for 10 years. I think City of Gardner and some of the surrounding communities have done that. So we can be pretty creative with what we wanna do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Austin, I have a couple questions kind of around the corridor studies, and the Pleasantdale Four Corners area. As we look at TIP projects, we know that there's an investment on the town side, and I think of how much Chapter 90 money over the years had gone into the 56 Palmagussit tip project. So I just wanna be mindful that we're thinking about those needs going forward, because I think that this is probably the first year in 10 plus years, I wanna say, that we will have access to our almost all of our entire chapter 90 funds, because large amounts every year were going towards the town's commitment to this tip project. So just if, I realize that we're a little bit farther out from that, but I don't know what those expenses look like in today's world. That was all before I think any of us were on this board, so that those decisions were made for this intersection and this tip project. So that obviously hinders the rest of town roads and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, the goal, especially for the next couple of years, is we don't foresee any need to spend any money on planning studies or anything for designing something for a tip project. Thankfully, Four Corners was spearheaded by MassDOT. I anticipate the same will happen for Route 122. So the goal is, let's start paving roads. We know that we have a lot of issues with the condition of some of our roads.
We can start with 13 Beechwood if you want.
Okay. Get you a sidewalk, complete street pipe lane.
It's like an epic,
Yeah.
like bottom out pothole. If you go too fast, or not even too fast, but you hit it, like
Yeah,
sometimes drive kids home down through there, and they're
Yeah.
like, what? And
Well,
I drive so
'cause
slow through the
what
neighborhood.
happened was, there's a house that leaks water, and as the water in the wind time goes down there, it pools there, and then freezes, and then it ups
That's the bottom of my street.
Yeah.
I have the same thing, there's a manhole that you can see the whole side of the manhole cover
Yeah.
because the whole side of the street's just gone.
Yep. So I mean, this year's especially between chapter 90 and the additional fair share, we've got almost $500,000 in chapter 90 funds this year, when usually it's around $350. So we've got a little bit extra money for projects. The latest language from the House budget actually decreases the chapter 90 allotment. Not great for cities and towns. I imagine that they're gonna boost it up and at least level fund it from where it's been, so the way it actually works though is we get kind of a 5-year bond. So I think what Rutland did for a while is they didn't do anything, they saved the money and then they spent a lot of it on designing 56. You did what you had to do there, but ideally the best practice is you do a little bit every year. Certainly it's not enough to pave as much as you want, but
Does Chris have a list of priority areas to?
yeah, so I think I mentioned in my update at the last meeting, we're working on kind of a pavement plan.
Yeah.
One of the things, the profile study or the pavement condition index study from a couple of years ago
Yeah.
is a little expired now, so some of those costs aren't even reliable.
Yeah.
They've gone up tremendously, so some of the things that were either higher priority have changed. There's also a talk of, well, we already put in some chapter 90 funds on Wachusett. Do we go a little bit more and kind of finish that project out? So we're trying to weigh some of the options and we'll present to the board for your approval as well. But before we do that, we're preparing a bid for all the materials and the labor, so when we're ready, we have our paving plan, we have our bids, and then we can just go.
And you're looking ideally to do kind of one comprehensive bid that then,
Yeah, bid for the whole year.
yeah.
So whether it's we're paving a road or whether we're fixing sidewalks at the schools, we don't have to go out to bid every time, we just have one bid at the beginning of the year and negotiate a price, and we just call the company and say, we need a truck full.
And I know Harry, I know you have something, I
no,
know
go ahead.
a couple, I think it was last year, I'm not 100% sure. The state did a lot of repaving, or maybe it was 2 years ago, repaving on the state
Numbered routes.
numbered but not state owned numbered routes. And Rutland was a decent beneficiary of that. I don't know if there's kind of, if you and Chris can keep your feelers out with CMRPC and everything, if there's other opportunities for something of that nature to come in and hit some of those other bigger traveled roads that didn't, because I think we also were able to get Pleasantdale,
For free.
yeah, part of Maple,
Yeah.
you know, so in addition to 68 and 56 and everything, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's back up a little, DPW facility, how are the improvements coming along on that? The doors, the furnaces, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so, well.
Has that started yet or no?
No, so the Green Communities Grant, that work I think is, actually, we're still working with the company to kind of plan that out. One of the things that changed with that is we found out from Green Communities that we actually have to go out to bid for a portion of the project.
Oh.
So we'll have to prepare the bid specs for that, but we're also awaiting approval of town meeting for the $60,000 for the door replacement. So once that's approved at town meeting, we can start that as well.
Okay, I'm sure Chris would appreciate getting that done as soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as the warrant was open, I think he came up and asked how we can submit an article.
Okay,
Anybody, have any other questions for Austin, Town Administrator?
Lots of good news.
And I've enjoyed seeing the dispatch kind of be the cheerleaders over there and really try to boost employee morale and really get into it. I think there were some social media posts that were going around that they look like they're really loving the theme this week and everything. So I appreciate that they're working to keep things light and fun in a stressful building.
Can I also just add one more personnel update on that? I had the opportunity to attend a graduation ceremony for our newest dispatcher, Gabby Arsenal, in Milford, brand new training facility from the state 911 department. It was amazing.
Awesome.
Some of the technology that they have, first of all, if you're on the Mass Pike, you get in an accident, wherever you are, you're calling Milford, which is really interesting. It's all done through Next Gen 911. But it was also a good opportunity to advocate a little bit for investing a little bit in some
Is
of
that
our
in the same,
dispatch
that's our
operations.
headquarters too, the DOC, right? Is it in the same building? or
I
is
think you
this
guys
a-
are down the road.
Okay,
Yeah,
cause they
'cause there's
used to
a-
be in the same building.
Yeah, they're right down the road next to, actually, our doggy daycare is there. So like, this road looks familiar. But it was an amazing facility, and we actually got to talk a little bit about, cause it's a recently constructed facility, so getting an idea what costs were, what to plan for, as we know that we have some needs in our dispatch facility as well. So I think we got to make some good connections with people that can hopefully help us down the road. But I just also want to congratulate Gabby. It was an 8-week program. She was working alongside dispatchers from like Lawrence, all across the state. And she was one of the top performers, and she's now working for Rutland, and I think her first shift was like the Saturday or Sunday after she graduated, so.
great,
Awesome.
awesome, yeah.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you to congratulations to her and to the whole team over there, because I know they've really been working on trying to develop a good training and onboarding program, because it's hard work. So thank you. Moving into old business. We have a couple big sets of policies that are outstanding that I am hoping that we can finish reviewing tonight and then have on the agenda for approval or for our next meeting. We have the financial policies and that I think we've had since the beginning of February, and the personnel policies and employee handbook, which we've had since the beginning of March, I believe. I know Austin had gone through the financial policies with us, I think, the middle of February. And then we made it halfway, a little bit more than halfway through the personnel and employee handbook policies, or personnel policies and employee handbook, a couple weeks ago with Ally. So Austin, if you wanna,
Which do you want me to start with?
I think on the agenda first is personnel policies, employee handbook, we can start there.
Yeah, so I think we got through everything but chapter 8. So I think what is remaining is chapter 8, which is leave administration. So some of this is actually, or most of this is just codifying some of the processes or policies that we have now, so internal policies and procedures for different departments, we just wanted to codify for the whole organization, so we start off with sick and personal leave, how much you get, when you get it, how you can request to use it or utilize it, notifying your relevant department head, town administrator, and any other designee. So really, there's actually no changes to the practice of sick leave or personnel leaving this, just wanted to again put something in paper, as this will be also the employee handbook as well. Same thing as well for vacation leave, just talking about how much you get, how to use it. This also does include, I know there was a discussion at the last meeting about the rollover opportunity for non-union staff. A benefit we thought would be a good opportunity for non-union staff to take advantage of, especially we have some staff members who don't take vacation time, simply because they're busy, they do everything. I'm looking at one right now. This is an opportunity, especially when things slow down in the summer, for them to kind of roll that over and use their leave that they've earned. But again, the practice of vacation time, there's no requested changes in this policy. Same thing for sick incentive 8.3, just again, putting pen to paper or ink to paper on this one. Vehicle use policy is a new policy. This is something we have a handful of town staff, whether it's through contract or just by the nature of their position, they have a take-home vehicle. For liability purposes and recommendation of our insurance carrier, we wanted to make sure that we had a policy in place for municipal employees that utilize a town vehicle, as well as those who are using their personal vehicle on town time. So reimbursement, making sure that they're familiar and acknowledging this policy as part of the employee handbook as well. There's some recommended language in here that came from some internal policies from our departments, and then as well just some practices from the Department of Revenue. I would say we have five or six employees that have a take-home vehicle now. Most of them are public safety, and the DPW director and foreman. Any questions on policies thus far? Okay, keep rolling. That's a long one, cause it's kind of important. Anti-fraud is an existing policy that we had already. This is something that is required just overall in our audit. This was no change to the policy, just again, formalizing some of the things, some of the practices that we have now, talking about what the process is, if there is a report of fraud, and investigation, subsequent reports as well. Same thing for drug-free alcohol workplace and drug and alcohol testing. Currently, the only employees that are subject to drug and alcohol testing are public safety and DPW employees, just by the nature of their jobs. There is not a proposal right now to add any additional employees subject to this policy. Candidly, if you're responsible for using town resources through our liability and mass general law, and also federal law in some cases, if you're a CDL, you have to be screened for drug and alcohol. This also talks about a process if there is a refusal and if there's a positive test as well.
So, sorry,
Yep.
Austin, this, you said it is or is not adding employees that are subject to all departments, applies to all departments of the town of Rutland, governed by. Okay,
Yeah, so if you will be responsible, right now, we don't have any fleet vehicles for non-DPW or non-public safety. This would cover if we did acquire some inspectional services vehicles, for example, they would then be responsible for the program.
thank you.
This also does cover an instance of if there's a report or a suspicion of an employee in the workplace, providing them for a mechanism to be drug and alcohol tested, and how we work with the employee through there as well. 8.7 expands a little bit on our existing social media policy. This is for town employees, vendors, contractors, officials, and members of the community. This is also part of our kind of cyber liability policy as well, recommendation from our insurance carrier, just to have something especially for town staff and use of town resources. Social media is kind of can be a dangerous tool, so we wanna make sure that we're covering ourselves and have the relevant and appropriate language in our policies for staff to adhere to. Disciplinary action is sort of a new policy. We had some existing kind of patchwork language, whether it was kind of internally or just informally. This puts something to paper, what folks should expect if there ever is a need for disciplinary action. Following the progressive discipline model, making sure that we're documenting as much as we can, working with the employee before we get to, and unfortunately, we never have to get to discharge of the employee. But just, again, talks about the process, formalizing some things that we are already doing now. I will say, just in my year here, I've been asked several times if we have something like this, so it seemed important to put in policy.
Can I ask a question, also? I'm sorry, and just backing up to social media,
Yep.
please.
Absolutely.
Just looking through it, it sounds like they all need to go through. We need to have somebody, i.e. Austin or a designee, that has approval of any town official social media sites. So
Yeah.
what do we have that's out there already that has the town of Rutland on it that we don't have access to, that
Yeah.
is seemingly posting on behalf of a town committee group?
So if this policy is approved, we'll have to reach out to all known official pages and make sure that they're complying with this policy. And also, I know that there's been some examples of others that appear to be representing an official capacity of the town of Rutland, wanna make sure that they are in compliance with this. If they're not, then the town has the opportunity to either identify a way to terminate that page or officially represent that that page does not comply with our policy. So one of the next things I think that would be important for us is to put something on our town website showing all of the official pages.
Yeah.
And also a link to this policy, so if you go on rutlandma.gov and click on the social media page, you can see everything. But you can also see what, if you know of a page that is representing the town of Rutland, you can quickly see if it's an official channel, and if not, you can report it to the appropriate authorities to investigate as well.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Austin, on this, disciplinary action.
Yep.
It seems like this document makes every attempt to keep the person here. Oral, talking, helping them out, all that stuff. So if that's the case, can you run through, as you see it, not just in words, but in, what's the disciplinary action that could be taken on somebody? Like this is step one, step two, just kinda highlight it.
Yeah, no, so I mean, I would refer obviously to the comprehensive language that's in here, I'm not gonna read it verbatim, but typically,
no.
if there's a report of something, we will kind of go on a fact-finding mission, talk to all relevant parties. We'll certainly talk to the employee that has reported something, but also the employee that the action has been reported against. If we do find that there's cause for some sort of reprimand, we'll initially start with an oral. If it continues or if it's severe enough, we would then go to a written. Of course, there's certain language in here, if there's something that is serious enough, we could immediately go to discharge or termination of the employee.
Okay.
That's not to say that we can't go straight to that process, but the idea is, again, if it's something that we feel that we can work with the employee, we'll follow this process. If not, there's avenues for paid or unpaid administrative leave, investigations, termination, you name it. I think that this is very comprehensive, but also we do have management rights to escalate the action if necessary.
And how does this interplay with unions?
They have their own dispute resolution and
Okay.
disciplinary action. Wherever there's gaps in the collective bargaining agreement, it falls to the policy. But most of them don't have gaps.
Okay.
I think that this is one area that the unions kind of, we had the mechanism in place through the union contracts, but we never had anything officially in policy. And I think one thing I like is that it goes in the personnel file, so that there's history through staff turnover or whatever, what has worked or hasn't worked or anything, because I think sometimes things just get lost in the shuffle. I know we had talked about on the earlier side, kind of the review process and making sure that the good is also in there, but also when there is a need for some sort of kind of HR intervention, that there is a process and documentation followed. Because maybe it goes, once a year something comes up, or once every other year, it's a trend or whatever. So-
Progressive discipline is the right thing to do. It works. It works.
Yeah.
You know?
And then for this, in regards to job performance, do we have updated job descriptions so that if we need to?
Not for everyone, that's something that Ally has been also working with town departments to update, well, first, see if there's any job descriptions on file. If there's not, develop them, if there is, update them to make sure that they're relevant to 2024.
I think with the clerical union, a lot of some of the positions that hadn't had clear job descriptions now do, but I think that, to your point, that there is still a large gap of and kind of what I think we've all talked about, what necessarily might be posted if that position were to become open versus what the person does for work now, and how that's transitioned and monitored and recognized in the personnel file, as well as performance and ideally compensation and everything.
Right, so exactly.
That's the, I think, work in progress goal to get there.
Thank you.
Next, yep,
On policy,
yes, sir.
section C. Hire, promote, supervise, or otherwise participate in the employment of your immediate family. Is that, for example, your husband, wife? Daughter, son.
So you skipped, there's one in between. There's a dispute resolution, that's a simple one. It's just dispute, or if you're in a union, it's called a grievance. There's a policy in here to talk about, usually a grievance is filed when an employee believes that another has violated, or management has violated aspects of the collective bargaining agreement, or in this case, town policy. So we just wanted to make sure that there was a process to resolve that grievance. So just wanna make sure that I mentioned that as well. But yeah, so.
It's just mediation, right, Austin?
Yeah, pretty much,
That's all it is.
yeah, yep. Yeah, so Harry, your question on the conflict of interest policy?
What is immediate family? I mean, I know what I think it is, but what does this mean in this policy? Is
Yeah,
it like
I mean, generally it's your spouse, your children. In some cases.
Not your grandkids,
Well,
not your nephews, nieces.
I think that's where things get a little cloudy sometimes, because I think that some families, especially if they have a different living situation where they may have their grandkid, for example, living with them, I think that would be considered immediate family. So we have to, in this case, the ethics commission and as well as the town kind of has to look at the fact of the situation and consider everything as a whole.
Yeah, I think the state describes it as spouse or children.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then it goes to parents, grandparents.
Yeah, so this virtually is a copy of the Mass General Law, conflict of interest law, but again, just codifying it in policy and making sure that all employees know that we do also have to follow conflict of interest law as well. And
Sorry,
Yep.
forgive me if it's in here, but does the town require, I know that elected officials are supposed to complete the conflict of interest yearly, does the town require employees complete the online? Okay. I know
yeah, the new online training, yeah,
For my-
yeah, so that's
for my-
managed through the clerk's office.
I need to do it as well for work, so that's why I was curious, like, and I forget if I think it's yearly that we have, maybe it's every
2 years.
I don't.
Yeah, I think every year you have to take like the
Acknowledgement.
refresher acknowledgement,
Right.
yeah, and then the next year it's the comprehensive.
Yeah,
And they made it a lot harder, so you can't just click through it anymore,
right.
actually have to learn.
And they have it different if you're an elected official versus a municipal, like an employee also, so, anyway, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last page is just an acknowledgement, for all employees, so once this is formalized, we'll ask all employees to, well, we'll give them a copy of this handbook and policy packet, and just sign this to acknowledge, and this will go in the personnel file, and any new employees as well. And of course, if there's any change to a policy, we will ask them to acknowledge again that they received it, understand the policy as well. And then the final page is just a log. We're looking for a lot of policies here. I think this is just a little chart for internal and also external to know when we last looked at policies. A good practice is to look at them every couple of years to make sure that you're relevant, so. And that is overall, happy to answer any questions on what I just presented, as well as anything Ally presented at the previous meeting as well.
I'm looking at this and going, for a town like Rutland, it's pretty comprehensive. And is this a standard one that you would see in towns of our size, or is this more of a one that you'd see like in a city of Lowell or Boston or Worcester?
Yeah, I mean, I'd make the argument that as a Massachusetts municipal corporation, we have to comply with everything that the city of Boston, Worcester. So a lot of these are rooted in general law or federal law, and also just our local policy and practice. So I think what it looks like a lot, and it's wordy, it's something that we're already responsible to comply with. So as a best practice for human resources and just personnel administration, something that we felt was important. They've been working, I know Becky had a draft copy of this in her office. They've been working on a handbook for a long time, just never able to make it happen, so just wanna get it done so the employees and everyone can kind of have a bare minimum standard to follow.
I think if I met through a number of iterations of town administrators as well as select boards, there's been piecemeals, there's been, some of these policies have existed in either as they are here, just as standalone, or kind of as a basis for what is being presented here. And we heard through many iterations of the board that there was a very strong need for something of this nature. And part of that goes with the hiring HR coordinator, was that there really needed to be a stronger HR piece to a town of this size. I think a lot of towns operate more efficiently, and one of the things that the MMA that a couple people had said, which I never really thought of, was HR is one of your biggest, if not your biggest, liability reducers. And so having a good HR policies as well as department staff in place is a long-term way to significantly reduce liability.
If you put it this way, you think about it, if you include our total spend for the schools, we are a $30 million organization with seasonally around 150 employees a year. So we have to operate like one, and this is one aspect to it.
And I think I think at the beginning of the year, of our kind of year together, made the commitment to kind of modernize town government and really work on the bylaws and policy pieces. And these are two big pieces of policy, the employee handbook and personnel policies and the financial policies that were again and again throughout different boards, throughout different administrators, throughout even this past year, audits and the like, that we've heard that this is a best practice, strong priority need. So I think we as a board made those commitments and trying to honor on our agreed upon goals and objectives for some of it.
Is this gonna be online
Yes.
eventually?
Yeah, once adopted, we'll put it online.
Okay.
So I didn't know if anyone had any other questions for the employee handbook. We didn't, tonight was the first night that we finished going through them, so I figured we would hold them and look for adoption at our April 29th meeting, just to give everybody 2 more weeks to kind of review, reach out to Austin, and through Tamika and Ally if they have any questions or significant concerns. But if anybody has anything here tonight, by all means, we're good to go. I know it's a lot. The nice thing about policies for both this and the financial policies is they're a lot easier to be amended than bylaws. I caution at the kind of constant pendulum swing of things, but if there's a significant error or misstep or best practices change or whatever, it's a lot easier to go into policy and say, you know what, this is policy, but this is how it works better in practice, or this is best practice, or whatever.
It's a great point. One of the most important sessions at the annual meeting of MMA is the labor law. I think Ally went to that one this year. Because it seems like every year there's a new case that comes out and you realize you have to adjust a policy. So this is a living, breathing document as the organization changes as well and case law and new requirements come out. The fire chief just brought up something today about there's draft standards to incorporate, for example, NFPA into the OSHA standards, which would be a huge change for the organization. So if that happens, we'll have to adjust our policies, right? So certainly I think we'll obviously, if something comes up, we'll ask the board to consider it.
I appreciate the time you give. I do have some questions.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna take time tonight to do it. I'll sit down and talk to Austin or Ally, whoever, and just kind of go through those and
Yeah.
say mine.
Thank you, and I think you might have missed the one or two of the first meetings where we got the policies, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody has enough time and also be mindful that this is some of the big work of what I think is the commitment of this board, so I would like to try to. Thank you, Austin.
Yep.
And please extend our thanks to Ally also, I know she was here for the big chunk of it the other night, so. Moving into the financial policies, I think we've had these since the beginning of February, I believe, with kind of review throughout the middle of February, I think. I don't know if anybody has any questions, concerns. Again, I just wanted to get back on the radar and was looking to have adoption at the April 29th meeting. If the board's comfortable moving them forward tonight, that's fine, but I didn't want the board to feel rushed. I know it's been a little while since we've spoken about them, so if we have any questions or want Austin to review anything with us.
Yeah, I wasn't able to make that meeting where you discussed this the first time, so I apologize. I tried to look at the minutes and the open meeting on it, but there's a lot of questions I had. Some of them I think are very good that they put in here, in terms of the financials of the town. I did have, where are we here? One-time revenues, I love that, that was good. One of the things I think you and I had talked about, Austin, briefly, was on page 10, under policy, where it says the town will strive to maintain a minimum funding level of 12 to 15% of its annual operating budget. Is that still, did you cover that, and did that stay the same? Under the general fund reserves?
I'm looking at financial reserves.
Yeah.
In that first introductory paragraph under policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harry, so we didn't go into specifics about each policy. I think we talked about the overall intent and goal of each policy, but we didn't go into any detail. I know you and I had a phone conversation about this, and you had some recommended amendments to this, which I certainly am all for, and I agree with. There's also some changes to this that just, for example, the policy that I gave you referenced 4 stabilization funds, we only have 2, so simple amendments that we can include as well. just talking about the overall reserve level, that's incorporating all of our reserves, so that's gonna be free cash, both of our stabilization funds. And then we also consider overlay surplus as a part of reserves as well.
Considering what we've been through, is that under free cash, the third paragraph?
Yep.
The town will avoid using free cash to support any reoccurring operational costs and instead limit its use to funding non-recurring costs, building reserves and offsetting unfunded liabilities. Each year, either 25% of the certified free cash amount or $250, whichever is greater. This is what we had discussed, will be set aside so that it can provide a starting balance for next year's free cash certification. Given the situation we're in, I see that as a very high number. And I don't know if it's possible, given the previous statement of what we're trying to do here, to set aside $250. Because in some years, our free cash may not be more than $500,000 if we run into time. So to set half of that aside, that concerns me in this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a policy goal, right? I mean, I think in perfect circumstances, we would be, I hate to say this, but over-reserved, right? I don't think we're there yet, but I think we will also need to be ambitious in our goals so we can reference them when we make financial management decisions. So I think it's a good thing to set the goal high or set at least the floor high. You know, there's some communities that are, 30% reserved just for free cash, and then they have all the others that are in there, so. And this is just talking about the certified free cash number, the amount of that, right?
Right.
So, I think we were close to having almost that amount this year before some of the additional requests that came in from use of free cash this year. We would have been, I think, around 20% in stable free cash balance. Now we'll be probably about 15%.
Well, okay, again, I guess it's mandatory. It doesn't say may set aside, it said it will be set aside.
Yeah,
So-
the free cash document that I sent out to everyone, we have some policies that talk about, 5% for capital state, general state, OPEB employment. If things change, you guys are the policymakers, if you need to, defer from policy, that's your decision, right? But I think as a good practice for the organization, I think it's good to have ambitious goals here. This isn't general law, this isn't federal law.
Right.
We're not bound to this if, we're not gonna be thrown in the House of Corrections if we don't follow this, right? But I think it's a good practice and a good financial management goal and tool to have.
Well, I think it's good to set money aside, I'm just questioning the amount. And I look down the road and say, okay, we've got this, we will set it aside, but now we're gonna have to go and change policy because we can't do it. And I just would like to see a little more flexibility in this one.
So we could say,
Shouldn't
Shels,
do it.
so we could say, each year. Regardless, I think that we should find language that says that this is a goal, we're gonna strive to get there.
Then we might wanna change will to may,
Okay.
maybe set aside.
Yep.
Okay,
Or continue to use will strive, I think throughout this, you have like will strive to, something that it's
it doesn't become mandatory language is what I'm getting.
yeah, and I understand that, and I also understand Austin's point is wanting to have some teeth behind it, that this is really,
That's where cause I agree with you, Harry, I like the ambitious goals, but at the same time, the whole will strive or will avoid, like that being throughout this document also makes me nervous. I'd like to see some way of, having these be our goals of what we can do, not necessarily locking us into it per se, because we're gonna have situations where we can't necessarily do that every year, but can we keep track of when we're falling short of these and trend that? Because if we're consistently not meeting those or anywhere close to them, I think that's something that we have a policy for a reason, we need to try and do that. What are the reasons that we're not getting to that point? And I would like to be able to trend that over the years and see how and why.
Yeah, so what I can do is, just as a tool to kind of supplement this is that free cash plan that I sent everyone, just to kind of show where we are in terms of our free cash position. We can kind of use that as a kind of a start from implementing this policy moving forward to see where we've been and where our free cash level has been, and show the respective percentages and the amounts to see how we are complying with this policy as well. Or goal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, cause policies are also, they have, you know, they start with poly for a reason, cause they're political. So oftentimes political are big picture goals and objectives for the community, so but it also kind of charts a course for the financial aspect of the organization to you know, from the select board level to say, do your best to get here. So to give you a reference, before we had some of the town clerk articles, the use of, after all the free cash plan, we were at just under 22% of free cash remaining. So, almost there. We could always hit it and just set it to like 5. We could always achieve the policy if we set it really low, right? But I do think that we need to set some sort of a bar. And this conversation isn't just exclusive to Rutland. In my previous community, the finance committee and select board never could agree on what the floor should be. Because you've got like a bunch of CPAs on one, and then you have a bunch of spenders on the other, right? So this happens everywhere, so I think we can get to a healthy compromise on where, you know, whether it's language or whether it is what percent you want. I think we should have something though.
I agree.
Well, I like the way it's worded, I just have a problem with will.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
mandatory
No,
word.
absolutely.
And I
You
don't disagree with you, Harry. I don't have as much of a problem with will strive, because I think that that's showing a stronger push that we really in to be more fiscally sound, that's where we should be.
Yeah.
But I think I share your sentiment, Harry and Jen, about that kind of will being,
Yeah.
so I also know that in the past, boards have, and not financial policy board, but have said, well, that's policy and it's best practice, and at this current time, what's the best interest of everything that we have in front of us? It's a struggle that we as a select board or select board with FinCom or select board and administrator's office need to wrestle with, you know what I mean? That this is what we should be working towards for all of our best kind of fiscal health to get there, and realizing that it's gonna take time.
Oh, I agree. You said, my concern was just, if every year we're balancing the budget by using free cash,
Yeah.
you know, we need to be aware of that, and we need to be talking about why are we still doing that? And that's clearly in our policies that we should be striving not to do that. So what are we doing to
How are we
change
trying to get
that
out of it?
Yeah.
So just as a
Without
comment.
making it mandatory.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly, cause
Yeah, I
it's
mean-
gonna be necessary in
Right,
cases.
no, I agree with that.
The biggest part, and that's why no one wants to do it, but in unfortunate situations you have to, right, is, you know, so if we didn't use any free cash, we'd be at just almost 55% available free cash. So we could have done more capital, we could have set it aside, put it in more stabilization, whatever. But at least we're still, like, that still appropriates money to the capital budget, to our 2 stabilization funds and our OPEB trust fund. You know, there's other things that I think we should consider as an organization. We started it this year with the FY25 budget, allocating some money towards accrued liability. Maybe not a bad idea to put some free cash in future years to that trust fund as well, let that grow a little bit, so,
Your OPEB,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep, so we're putting almost 40 grand in the FY25 plan to OPEB. But we can certainly modify that to accomplish what you're looking for.
and still pretty much keep the essence of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and I do agree, Harry, though, I know our conversation, you were asking to strike or $250,000, whichever is greater. So I have that as a note, just each year, either 25% of the certified free cash amount And then we'll modify the language to do
And, you know, if we change the mandatory, I don't personally even have a problem with 250.
Yeah.
If we're not forced to, we'll put that aside.
Yeah.
That's my issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the upcoming years of the budget that you put together, that's a big number to set aside for free cash.
Yeah.
That was my concern.
And it's possible that we could hit that 20%, but we wouldn't be able to hit the 250. And
Right.
then without having to have a conversation about raising the levy or something, you know, cause that's the balance, right? We wanna be able to use the free cash, not
Right.
have to raise the levy either.
Right.
So. Do you have, I think you said you and Austin had a pretty good conversation, but do you have
On
more
that-
that you wanna?
On that one item, yeah.
Okay, but do you have more that you wanna bring up tonight?
There's quite a few questions. I don't know how much of it you covered in your press meeting.
We didn't, it was more of just kind of a walkthrough and there wasn't a whole lot, similar to kind of how we just went with the personnel policy and employee handbook, there wasn't a whole lot, you know, if people had questions, but it wasn't a whole lot of
Well, do you want to bring this back to answer a lot of questions?
I mean,
Harry,
I'm trying to figure out,
if I may, what may be helpful is, if you have time, if you either wanna stop by or call, we can go through some of your questions. And we can document that and I can share that with the rest of the board ahead of the next meeting so, you know, we're not having just a long discussion about it at the next meeting. Because some of it we could maybe address beforehand and either revise or ask for board consideration at the next meeting. Maybe we could kind of take this discussion offline and work through that there if you want.
yeah, cause there's some here that, I mean, I've had this discussion in the past. So we can do that, and then maybe, to save time here, just bring it up at another time.
Yeah.
I don't wanna run till 10 o'clock tonight.
You don't?
yeah,
So just a note on this, after the audit is presented to you, there will be some additional policies that I didn't wanna bring up here, I wanted you to talk to the auditor first. But we'll have some additional ones for you to consider, mostly related to federal grant administration and some other smaller things as well. So, but this, like the personnel policies, are always gonna be a change.
so I think, Harry, if you're comfortable kind of working with Austin through some of it, if it's just kind of some verbiage language and everything softening or some, you know, less, I'm gonna say quote unquote, less significant changes, I think Austin can kind of collate everything and send it around to the board, and if there's any big kind of discussion points, we can earmark those for the next meeting. But I was really hoping that we could get these, both financial policies and the employee handbook and personnel policies approved at our April 29th meeting. Especially the financial policies have been out for quite a while, so the employee handbook and personnel as well, so.
Sorry, can I ask one more, and it might be completely unrelated, and you can let me know that, just looking at the ambulance receivables. I
Yep.
know we had talked about how the town does not have, if I get the wording right, the town doesn't have a contract or an agreement with any insurance company as far as what they will accept, so they back bill everybody for
Correct.
the remaining balance. Is that something related to policy, or is that just a town, like, is that something that the town would consider?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a standard in the industry altogether. Not a lot of organizations, unless you're like one of the larger organizations, like I'm talking maybe like Boston Fire, one of those where they have enough volume where they have the capacity to kind of negotiate those with Blue Cross, Harvard Pilgrim. Obviously, the only one that we do have a negotiated one, but we didn't negotiate it, is the federal government. Medicare, Medicaid, those are contracted, we don't have any say in those rates. Or any, actually, I'll just hold that there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think and kind of talking to some other communities also, it just becomes cost prohibitive to try to manage the ever-changing insurance side of things. For a small town, we don't have billing specialists or anything that can bill properly and negotiate properly with every different insurance.
And we contract it out anyways, and Coastal does a lot of ambulance billing for a lot of communities and organizations, but even still, we're not.
And yeah, I'm just curious if it's, how much are they actually getting paid for the remaining balances?
Depends. Yeah, it depends. It's, you know, you're,
Yeah.
I think some years you'll make money, some you won't be so lucky. But I think Rutland's done fairly well in terms of, you know, while it all goes to the general fund, if you look at the costs of doing business, if you will, I think Rutland has done a really good job on being aggressive, writing off, so you don't have a large outstanding amount of receivables on your balance sheet as well.
Thank you.
Paul, anything? Paul, anything?
No.
Moving into new and special business, we need to vote to sign the final draft of the warrant as presented. I think that we went through everything on Thursday night. There were a couple changes asking to have the CPA article moved to right before the citizens petitions, not including a dollar amount, but including the exemptions currently, as there's still outstanding public information sessions to be held.
Yeah, if I may, I just wanted to note that your next meeting on April 29th is the last meeting before annual town meeting. So the board will have to make a decision on the surcharge percentage so that we can prepare the motions document for town meeting. So just to keep that in the back of your mind for next time.
And I, Tamika, forgive me, I don't recall there being any other significant changes.
Nothing significant. I sent out an email this afternoon and just tried to document, there was a couple of articles that you wanted to note that CIPC was the sponsor for. We changed the fire brigade article to be sponsored by the fire department. The opioid article, the sponsor was amended to be the town accountant. And I think those were those are really the only changes that you guys had moved for. Oh, and I added the exemptions to the explanation for the CPA. Thank you.
One of the, again, I must have spent hours reading through the Community Preservation Act.
Which one's that?
And one of the things I do not notice here, it says sections 3 through 7. But it doesn't clarify whether we're operating under section 3B, we're gonna adopt that, or 3B and a half. There's a huge difference there. And my recommendation would be to go by 3B. Acceptance will approve under section 3B of chapter 44B, tax surcharge of whatever the percent is since again. Because 3B and a half is absolutely terrible for the town. So I would like to see if we can add that little language to it. Because 3B is where you do the straight percentage. 3B and a half, you are still required to do the 3%. Only if the town were to change the percentage, the money would have to come out of our town operating expenses for 3B and a half to make up the 3. 3B is more clear cut for what we're trying to do, I believe.
I agree with you, Harry. Yeah. I think B and a half is a different option.
And so,
There is language that is available in the state to add this.
So that would be in the motion. So whatever the board decides, maybe at your next meeting,
Okay,
just, decide which one you wanna include in the motion.
so this would be the motion we're presenting at that time. This wouldn't be the.
Well, yeah, so this exact language wouldn't be what is read at town meeting.
Okay.
So, this would be obviously as best description as possible, but, the most important thing is what you're reading at town meeting. So whatever you decide, just wanna make sure that you have that motion accurate.
Yeah, cause I don't think the intent of proposing this is to set the town up to take money away from their regular tax bills to fund the the Community Preservation Act.
Oh, yeah, no,
Huh?
no, that was not the,
So that's what I'm saying, it's not clear as to how that will be done, I think we need to make it clear through 3B.
Yeah, cause it says right here, B&a-half is notwithstanding chapter 59 or any other general or special law to the contrary as an alternative to subsection B. And then it goes on to do the B&a-half, so it's,
So that's
to
why.
me, that suggests alternative to B. You can, it's B or B&a-half.
Right, so if we say B, then that's kind of set in cement that we know what we're getting.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how, cause it's talking about adopting sections 3 through 7 inclusive, so how do we, I guess, how do you select
With town
between?
council, so the language that was provided to us was from town council, so when we work on the motions document, once the board confirms this at your next meeting, we can make sure that we communicate specifically what the board is looking for and how that can be worded properly in the
Right.
motion on the floor.
Yeah, okay. Like, how do you choose between the two?
yeah, I think it's either or. I
Right.
don't think it's both.
And it might just be how we set up whatever. Okay.
And I think my only question, and I hate to do this, is back and forth with article for the fire department / fire brigade. I know that we went back and forth in the meeting on that, and I don't honestly remember what it was settled on, so if you're confident that it was the department and not the brigade, then.
Seth spoke up and said to change it to the fire department.
Okay.
And there was no dissension from either the board or the finance committee.
I just wanted to make sure that, cause I know that there was
know
conversation
Tom
back and forth
questioned it, yeah.
and I wasn't sure, so thank you.
Absolutely, and I also noted that I did not put recommendations on the CPA article as well, so that is something else that we'll need at your next meeting too, is your recommendation on that one.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions or concerns or anything? Just kind of as we noted in the past, the citizens petitions, and I think you noted also that you won't, excuse me, post the warrant officially until planning board has finished their review process with the
Yes.
citizens petitions.
Correct, because they had the public hearing for the last one on April 23rd, which still gives us time because we don't have to legally post until April 26th. So my goal is once I have that information, I would likely just get it posted the next day. And I have coordinated with Anita so that we can coordinate with the constable to make sure that when it's good, he'll be ready to post it.
Sorry, the fire truck, can we go to the fire truck
Yeah.
again? That was the 1.85, there's no grant now, no grant money? Wasn't there grant money at one point in time?
Yeah, so the fire chief has already actually applied for the grant, but it's not guaranteed, right? So we have to demonstrate to the federal government that we have the capacity and we're willing to pay the full 1.85 million. The federal grant would only cover about $1 million, so if we get that grant, we'd only be borrowing $850,000. But again, not guaranteed, and we wouldn't find out until after town meeting if we got that grant.
But I would assume, because Seth had said that only about, when he applied for the last one, only about, 7 out of 250 applications got the money. So it's gonna be tough to get grant money for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough sell.
Yeah.
It's a tough sell for me in a town that, how many houses are over 2 stories in this town? Half a dozen? So I don't know, when you have surrounding communities that all have brand new trucks.
It's more than just that, it's the fact that the code on the vehicle makes it almost obsolete in 2 to 3 years. And it's gonna take approximately 2 years to get the fire truck built. So even if we approve it today, we won't be spending the money until that time, according to Seth anyways. So that's the issue we're facing here. Do we run an obsolete fire truck that doesn't meet code anymore? Or do we, So that was something that, and believe me, that was something CIP wrestled with for over and over again on that.
Well, I don't have a problem with the fire truck, I have a problem with, is it the ladder?
Oh,
that we need.
the ladder's gonna
I mean,
be,
it's a nice expensive toy, but I'm saying maybe another, ambulances, engines.
Yeah.
Do we really, I mean, I see the ladder twice a year, thank God.
yeah, it's, I think it's gonna be 10 feet longer. That's all it is.
Yeah, and
Previous one.
Yeah, that
Why?
doesn't really change what I just said,
well,
but
it's all,
yeah.
it's,
I know,
it's,
So we can get 10 feet higher? Oh, great.
yeah, no, so it's,
I think.
I think there should be a special tax for people who have to, have to force us to buy.
But I think some of
So-
it is also the reach, it's not just the height
Right.
up, but when there was a fire at Countryside a few years ago, it was getting the horizontal reach to the community or to the buildings.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our houses sit back far, so it's a
Yeah.
combination of the height and the reach.
I understand that, but if there's one thing I've learned from firefighters, they're better than any other agency at mutual aid. It's true, they're the best, they're better than cops, better than federal government, mutual aid. And if you have surrounding communities that have brand new ladders, I'm just saying, I don't,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Santa can ride on the engine, I mean,
some of this is also just making sure we're in compliance with NFPA standards, and this also has an impact on actually your homeowner's insurance, the ISO rating as well, so I think actually right now, our existing truck, we score about 50% on that aspect of the ISO rating. This would get us a full score, which upgrade our ISO rating, which could mean actually reduction in your annual insurance as well.
okay, so there is a
We'll go down.
benefit.
Yeah.
Even if they don't use it, there's a benefit to having it.
The way it was kind of sold to me from the fire chief was actually you'll save more than what this would cost based off of.
I don't know, he'd have to prove that one to
Yeah.
me, but okay,
Yeah.
$1.85 million
Let's
is a
just
lot
say,
of money.
I didn't verify it, but
Yeah.
I looked at our, I can certainly send the report, it's a public document, you can take a look, there's a lot there about water distribution, fire service. We have an obligation to respond within a certain amount of time with the correct apparatus, so if we have a fire truck that's sitting in the back of the public safety facility, we're also really not in compliance with
Yeah,
our federal standards.
Like you, I expect, if I get up and validate this, I expect not to be the greatest person at the town meeting. No question, when you're spending almost $2 million on a piece of.
When we're not spending it in other areas that need it more, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So,
I know, but
again,
we're dealing with COVID. here.
ambulances, absolutely, engine truck, fine, other things they need, fine, we're not a city, we have surrounding communities that have these trucks, so.
Right,
I don't know, it's just, that's gonna be, as a taxpayer, that's the way I'm looking at it.
yeah.
Is it, do you really need a $2 million ladder truck? I don't know.
If everything does go through with that, and we get a new one, does the existing one, same process, gets declared as surplus and any idea how much?
We could also try to trade it in and I
Trade it,
can't remember what the estimated value is, it's.
Well, if it's not able to be certified, it's zip.
That's
Well,
it?
some
They'll just scrap it.
He said parts, he said like 30,000 in parts maybe.
That's it for that?
Well, you never know, I mean, I can't wait to do this auction because I think that we have an opportunity to make some serious money because
If you can market it right.
yeah, well, this website that we're gonna use, I used it in my previous community. Just to give you an example, we had 2 trailers that we estimated we'd get maybe $5,000. Some guy from Minnesota came, bought both of them for $50,000. So we thought we were gonna get 10, we got 50. So there's some, I don't wanna call them crazy, weird people, but there's some people that love some old junky stuff. So what is it, one man's trash is another's treasure, so
Yeah, and that's great, but
yeah.
I'm thinking
I don't
about the
think we're gonna make $1
$2
million,
million
but well, we can make something, and that's obviously subject to your declaring it surplus and allowing us to dispose of it that way, so.
And this would be also, Tom, it needs to pass a town meeting, but then it's also debt exclusion language on the election, the ballot question also. So
Right.
it's excluded debt, so once it's paid off, then it falls off your assessment. So it's not forever and always there, but to your point.
And normally we do a 20-year on that.
Yeah.
So,
So it'd be about, for the average homeowner, it would be about $50 a year.
And then the 3% and then the other percent.
Yeah, well, remember, this goes down though, so starting, the first year would be 50, and then as the principal goes down,
Right.
slightly less, so.
So was there any other good questions, cause I know you were.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we're asking the town for a lot and we continue to ask, so.
Any other questions or comments about the warrant as presented? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to sign the final draft as presented.
With the changes? Draft with the change, cause you still have to talk to town council about this.
So we're gonna put that in the motion. We're
Okay.
not gonna change the warrant
Got it.
itself. Yep,
I'll get it,
don't worry, we will get the right answers though.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the
To
town
sign.
warrant,
To sign.
sign town warrant.
Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any other questions or comments or concerns or anything? Hearing none, roll call. Harry?
Second I.
Matt's and I.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. Thank you, Tamika. I know it's been a lot of back and forth. And thank you, Austin.
Oh, you're welcome.
The town administrator annual review, we had talked about it, I think, the beginning of March, and Ally sent out review forms to all of us via email. I think everyone hopefully received them. If you didn't or have problems opening them or would prefer paper copies, please reach out to Ally. She can get you what you need. We're asking them to be returned, they were sent out last week, we're asking them to be returned to her on the April 22nd. She and I will collate everything, and we will do the Austin's annual review in executive session on April 29th. We'll have opportunity, we'll kind of present the collated information if any member feels strongly to have additional conversation. And then we will, in open session, we'll just kind of reiterate high level what the review kind of was. That's a process Ally and I kind of have worked back and forth with, and over the past iterations of doing town administrator reviews and what has worked and what hasn't worked, and everything, so.
Just to one of the various topics, just making sure that we get a final version to review.
Yeah.
Ahead of
Yeah.
time, just to make sure we can.
Yeah, so Ally and I will have that out, it'll be in the meeting packet for that Thursday, before the meeting when the packet goes out.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody have any, I just wanna confirm that everybody was able to receive the email and have, open the attachments or whatever. And if not, if you haven't had a chance to look yet, or you haven't done it yet, and you have a
I got an HR star, cause I turned mine into Ally today.
woohoo,
If I don't do it now, it's forget about it.
I reviewed a little bit, I guess my question is, how did Ally and you put this together? Cause the board had no impact, we weren't asked anything on it, so how did you and Ally go about putting this together?
So in the past, reviews have just kind of been best practice, what has been, we took what the reviews have been for previous administrators, looked at what the MMA provides for guidance, and kind of collated that, so that was how we put together the review and tried to provide plenty of information and opportunity for not just a numeric reading, but also dialogue,
Okay,
input as well. And then,
not that I would have been good to pick apart and
Yeah,
put
yeah.
this thing together, but I was just curious as
Yeah.
why, we weren't.
yeah. Yep. We're fortunate that now we have an HR coordinator to really help kind of with this best practice, because in the past, it's fallen solely on the chair to do. And I really wanna publicly thank Ally for her assistance and work in working on this to make sure that it was a fair representation of a review process.
Okay.
Any other conversation? In reviewing the upcoming calendar, we realized that the May 13th, the board would be scheduled to have a meeting on Monday, May 13th. We don't hold meetings historically, we don't hold meetings on election day. There's nothing precluding it per MGL, it's just been best practice in town to not hold meetings. And given how long sometimes election certification takes, generally the past couple board iterations haven't had a meeting until the next scheduled meeting, so it's basically been a missed meeting. So we realized that we would need to worry about warrant and payroll, and so I'm asking the board to grant the town administrator authorization to sign warrant 23 and the corresponding payroll for that, that we would normally sign, that the board would normally sign on that Monday meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Is there any conversation?
How do we rationalize that with Mass General Law? Mass General Law states, 4156, the town accountant shall examine all such bills, drafts, orders, and payrolls, and if found correct and approved as herein provided, shall draw a warrant upon the treasury for the payment of the same. And the treasurer shall pay no money from the treasurer except upon such warrant approved by the selectmen. How do we rationalize
So-
transferring that to Austin when it's our responsibility by law to approve the warrant?
So we can grant authorization to do on our behalf, which
There is nothing here that says you can grant authorization. It says, if, let
There's
me
an
just
opinion
finish
from,
this.
sure,
If there is a failure to elect or a vacancy occurs, the remaining selectmen, together with the town clerk, may approve such a warrant. It doesn't say the town administrator, it doesn't say a town manager, it says the selectmen. And again, nothing against Austin on this, but I'm just wondering why we're not abiding by Mass General Law.
so
no, go for it.
no, I think what I was gonna say is that this year the town clerk is also up for reelection. So in order to do that, it creates the whole election process. Austin, go ahead.
So first, we did this during Christmas time. Second, we've also done this in previous years for previous town administrators dating back to your very first town administrator. Third, during our bylaw discussion, Peter explicitly stated from legal counsel that virtually anything that is a power of the board can be delegated to your employee. It doesn't have to be me. You could also designate or delegate someone else to sign on your behalf.
Right, I'm not saying it's you, I'm just saying, I guess I didn't have time to call the Attorney General or the Secretary of State on this today.
Yep.
Because in my mind, it's black and white.
If-
So why?
If you're more comfortable with one board member, you can designate the chair or some other member, but the point is you can designate it to anyone per practice of past practice here, past practice of other communities, and also various opinions in DOR, IGRs, and
I
just,
mean, it does say that we can designate a member of the board to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly fine with that, cause that's allowed in Mass General Law.
yeah. No, I caution using explicit language from Mass General Law because there's also other policies and regulations and opinions from the Department of Revenue that clarify other things that can be done from that interpretation. So, I mean, I agree with you, that's what Mass General Law says, but I also know that there's other things that say otherwise.
Well, that's probably why I wanted to call in today and see if there was an update or if there's other information either the Attorney General's office or Secretary of State could give me in relation to this.
Yeah.
I didn't, so I apologize for that. But personally, based on the law, I would have no problem having one of the persons on the board here sign the warrant.
And I mean, I think just based on not solely this past board, but previous boards, Austin alluded to going all the way back to Margaret, but also all throughout COVID, it was designated that the town administrator was the signatory for this. It doesn't preclude anyone from going in and reviewing the warrants. We would still get the board would still get the expense to budget reports once that's posted. So it's not preventing any of the information that the board has access to or has the availability to do. And I know for myself, I look at the expense to budget report. I occasionally will look at the warrants, but not generally. I don't generally go up and spend a lot of time in the week leading up to the meeting going through. So I think in my mind, it's the town administrator as staff in the office able to do it, rather than designating someone who is not up for election to have to sign. Is-
Well,
So
we have a
you,
motion and a
it
second.
seems like you don't want to have anybody from the board do this.
I am perfectly comfortable having staff do this. As past practice, as I think as past practice in town and as many other communities have done as well.
And
So-
if I may, he's not staff, he's the town administrator, I mean,
And like I said, it wasn't personal against
No,
it.
no, I understand that, but we-
So my question
Yeah.
is, were we doing it right in the past? We don't know. It's just been policy or history been doing it by. I'm questioning that policy and history and saying, what's the problem with having one of us do it if we abide by Mass General Law for that? I mean, the board can vote, that's, whatever you wanna do, but I'm just saying, cause I'm still gonna find out with the Attorney General or with the Secretary of State what this really means.
So we have a motion and a second to authorize the town administrator to sign for that, what would be that meeting? We've had the conversation, is there any other conversation? Hearing none, roll call. Harry,
Second, nay?
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, I.
Whitman, aye. And Harry, feel free to let us know what, the AG,
Yeah,
DOR,
if we were in
IG.
violation of what we just did tonight? Sure.
In the past,
Huh?
And many other
in the
communities.
I think this also did it during Christmas.
Which I voted against too,
Okay.
because it didn't fit the Mass General Law. And again, nothing against you, Austin, I don't
Well-
care who's sitting in that chair.
Yeah, no, I
This
think this is an
my
efficiency
Bible.
of government standard. I mean, I think we should also point fingers to our neighboring communities, which all of them do this. I think we should. Is it actually shame on them, or is it you have an ability to do it through modernization of Mass General Law? There's a lot of things in Mass General Law that are very antiquated and
And that's
haven't
what
been
I wanna
refined.
find out.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right, so. Okay,
Future meetings are April 29th is a regular scheduled meeting. May 11th is annual town meeting. May 13th is the annual election. And just a note that May 28th is a Tuesday. That would be the next regular scheduled meeting after the election because Memorial Day is that Monday. Is there any other business before us? We had a last minute executive session added, because information just came in, I believe, very recently, Austin, today, about Friday, about DCR. So, if there's no objection, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session. For reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, subject DCR sewer litigation update.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any conversation, questions, concerns? Hearing none, roll call.
second, aye?
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, I.
Whitman, aye. We are in executive session, not to return to open session.